Hello and welcome to ITIM number 11. I'm your host Tim Sarley, and today we're here at the Woolshed in Kialla, and we're here with the host with the most, Cam Mangiameli. How are you, Cam?
Hello Tim, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for spending some time with me. Now, I wanted to interview Cam because of his passion that he has for life, his passion that he has for business and customer service, and the passion that he has for his family that he has spent the lifetime in business with. So today we're going to touch on a few of those things. So stick around, it's going to be a great interview. But before we do that, Cam, tell us a little about yourself.
Thanks Tim. Came to Shepparton and Tim in 1979. My parents, Sam and Rosa, they came to Shepparton and bought the Windermere Motel.
Yes.
And now it's with Sebastian's restaurant as well. I went to St Brendan's Primary School, then Notre Dame, left school in Year 11. Went on to work at the motel for almost 4 years.
So you left school and went straight into the business?
Into the business, yeah, absolutely loved it. Loved working 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Couldn't wait to wake up and get out of bed. And I used to ride my bike. Didn't have my licence at the time. Met my beautiful wife of today, and we got married in 1990 at the age of 20, and Ange was 19. And we lasted about 12 months together in the business. Ange, coming from a background of farming, found it really challenging, not having a nights off. We moved into, Mum and Dad built a new residence at the front of the motel. They gave the place a new look, which was really good for us. It was a new little house, but it was a small house. And we moved out of there after 12 months, and we bought a little milk bar called Cam's Corner, which is on the corner of Corio and Friar Street, which is now Jet Jazz.
Oh, yeah.
And we were there 5.5 years. We then went back into the family business, and that was in 1997. And we never looked back, and we just went, we grew and grew, had some challenging times with the family.
Yep. So when you moved back into the business, you were working with your mum and dad?
Mum and Dad made the decision to retire, and I worked with my brother Sebastian. So Sebastian, myself and Ange.
Yes.
And we had some really good years. We had the first 12 years there, and then my sister-in-law Connie came into the business the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then we made a decision in 2014 or 2012. It took almost 2 years to sell the business.
Yep.
And then in 2014 we sold the business. Mum and Dad kept the freehold. And then I took it really easy for a couple of years. And then we bought here the Woolshed. We bought
out here?
Out here 2.5 years ago.
Okay. Yep. So out here is mostly functions?
All function work. So we don't open, unlike Sebastian's where it was 6 nights a week, full on. We only open when we have a booking, Tim.
Okay.
It's great.
It gives you time.
Fantastic, yeah. But you're not committed every night.
Yeah.
So it's really good.
That's good. Now you mentioned about family. I mean, obviously being with your brother for 17 years in the restaurant and in the motel. How important is family in business to you? Or
It was a great journey. I found it really challenging with Mum and Dad. When you've got generational gap, there's always issues. And I think the strength of our business was myself and Sebastian, the two brothers.
yeah.
Mum and Dad were great, but Dad was very old school, very old fashioned, couldn't cope with debt.
Yeah.
And Sebastian and myself, we went through some really aggressive years where we purchased and developed and took on lots of debt.
Yeah.
He used to find that really challenging, but it was just good, some really good times. There's always challenges in the family, and that's what basically came to the end. Our children were growing. We lived in a very small house for a long time now, 12 years on residence, and you get to a point where you just want to slow down and enjoy life a bit more.
Yeah, okay. And what are some of the tips that you can offer other people who are running a family business, working with their husband, wife, mum, dad, kids, whoever it may be?
Patience. An enormous amount of patience, Tim.
Yeah.
Patience and tolerance, Tim, It is. It's just, it can be hard work at times. It's very rewarding over a long time, but it does have its issues, And it really, it is. It can be challenging. I think one of the things I enjoyed, it was great having family because we had our area. So I would predominantly look after the restaurant. Sebastian looked after the motel.
Yep.
So we still worked together, but we had our own areas that we focused on. So I think that's what enabled us to be there for so long.
Yeah, so allowing that you're responsible for this and you're responsible for this part, and that way you guys know, everybody clear on what they have to do.
Correct.
In the business.
Yep. Correct. Yep.
Okay.
My wife played a huge role in the restaurant. She spent a lot of time in the kitchen over those years, and if if anything I can say to people in hospitality, some really important aspects to maintain a great business, consistency and service are the two most important things you need to focus on. And that's what it was our whole focus in the restaurant.
Yeah.
The service and consistency.
Well, one thing that kept us coming back when I first started taking Christy out as a young man, we used to go and take her out to Sebastian's restaurant, and one thing that kept us bringing back was yourself. I actually can't remember what the food tastes like or what food you had. I know it was good, but the main thing was the service. When I walked in, it was like, "Hey Tim, how are you? Great to see you. How have you been?" And you made me feel really welcome, and that's what kept me, Christy and I, coming back. So whenever I was a special occasion, whatever it may be, I'd always go and see yourself because I knew that the service would be fantastic.
That's so good to hear. Tim, I think the real important thing I should also mention, you've got to love what you do. Yeah. And I loved being around people. I still do. Probably don't have as much. I don't have the patience that I had in the earlier years. Yeah. But I still really enjoy being around people. And if you don't love being with people, you shouldn't be in hospitality. Cool. It's so important. And that's why, it's so important. You've got to love being around people, yeah. And
funny you say that, like you can go to a lot of cafes and restaurants where you don't get served by people who love people, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Correct. You see it all the time. And we've all experienced that, where you go somewhere and you think, what are they doing in hospitality? They're rude. And you think, and usually you find 12 months later they close down or the staff member's gone or the business is gone because of poor service.
Yeah. And so just touching on that as well, what you mentioned consistency and service. What other things in hospitality can you give? What tips can you provide if you're running a cafe or a restaurant today? What quick tips can you offer them?
You need to understand what you're doing, understand the core of your business, really important. We always focused on, we were just a single service, a night time only. We were fine dining and that's all we wanted to be. We didn't want to be anything else, Tim. You know, you see so many establishments open and they try and cater for breakfast, try and cater for lunch, try and cater for dinner, and they have this burnout factor. Within 12 months, 2 years, they are just physically burnt out. Yeah. So that's why we were able to do it for such a long time. Sebastian and myself and our wives were there 17 years, and Mum and Dad still own the property after all. So it's been 39 years that they've had the business with the property, and it's just imperative. You need to understand your customers. You need to understand what your business model is and what you're wanting to achieve and do, and that's what we did. But I always look back, and I actually ran into someone this morning from Bunnings who worked at Bunnings for the last 16 years, and she said to me, I still remember when Bunnings first came to Shepparton, they did all the induction at our restaurant, and they booked a lot of people out, and we just had so many great times. And she's telling me, I remember what great times we had when we stayed with you. So really important.
Yeah, mate. So you left a good experience. People left with a great feeling, having a really good experience, which makes them come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Understand your customers. That's the other thing I should say. You need to understand customers. Yeah. Our customers range. You would have a client come into the restaurant and he would drink 8 stubbies in a night, for example, and you have to understand that this customer liked his beer, so you'd have to keep up the service. And then of course the next customer, he might only want 1 stubby for the night, but if you can't differentiate between who their drinking habits or the customer or their habits, you can't provide great service. It's so important to understand that too.
It's interesting you say that. I often go to a cafe and we'll be sitting down having a coffee. We'll get our first coffee and I'll finish my first coffee and I'll be looking around thinking, I'd like another coffee. I'm still talking to my friend or whoever I'm with, and I know we're going to be here for another 15 or 20 minutes, so I'll probably like another coffee, and I'm looking around for some service, but I don't get that extra coffee, and I feel like the cafe's losing out because they could double their income just by coming in and saying, would you like another coffee? Yes, I would. Just at the right time. If I can get it at the right time. If it waits too long, then I don't want that other coffee now. I'm thinking I've got to go.
And it's so important to understand your business and your customers. Absolutely, Tim.
You touched on growth and how you and Seb were pretty aggressive at a certain stage.
We went through some great growth stages. We grew our business. We added motel accommodation on. We also got into some commercial developments across the road from the motel there in Wyndham Street. They were real exciting times.
You said you took on debt. So you took
Lots
on
of
debt
debt.
when your father didn't want to take on the debt.
Lots of debt, yeah. So
Yeah.
these are the family challenges, Tim.
Yeah.
Mum was good, but Dad just could not cope with, and we were so aggressive. So of course, every time we'd want to borrow more money, we'd go back and we'd say, "Look, Mum, Dad, we're going to do this," and Dad used to just get terribly upset, Tim.
Yeah.
But thankfully, in the end, everything worked out, and you had your challenges along the way. But I look back, and that was a lot of the drive that kept me going, was the fact that I just wanted to prove Dad wrong. I was just so challenged by it, Tim.
Yeah, right. And so would you recommend to people, or like it's easy to say go out and get a bank loan and all of a sudden you fall into a flop and you've got a lot of money, but when do you know the right time to go and borrow some money?
That's a really good question, Tim. I suppose it's all about having confidence in yourself, Tim, what you're doing. Yeah, and I think you need to surround yourself with good people. You need to talk to good, accountants, bank managers, people, and get advice. Yeah,
Professional team.
Yeah. We didn't do anything just on the cuff. Like you would do a bit of research, homework, and it was all about affordability, Tim. You need to, when you make a decision to do something, you need to be able to know that you can afford to do it.
Yeah.
It's no different than someone builds a house and they borrow more than what they should.
Yeah.
They find themselves in problems.
How do you predict future income and think, okay, if we go and renovate the restaurant or the motel, we're going to bring in this more new client or this new client? Or how did you do that?
Well,
or was it just
one of the good things when you've got an established business, if you've got established clientele, you know when you do renovate that the odds are, providing you don't change the core of what you do, it's going to maintain and hope it'll grow.
Yeah.
And that's what happened there. So we didn't try and radically change what we did, but cosmetically we did.
Yeah.
But from a service point and looking after clients, no, absolutely not. It was we still focused on the core of what we did, and that was looking after people too.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yes. You did mention that I love technology. If you didn't realise that already. But you have mentioned, and I remember being there one day when you were installing these big plasma 40-inch TVs on the wall, and you're one of the first in the town to do that. And you said, "Tim, come have a look at these new TVs." And they were just mounting these TVs on
Correct,
the wall.
Tim,
So
yeah.
you've always been ahead of the game with technology.
Absolutely. We built a new wing of rooms, and this was back in the early 2000s, and plasma TVs had just come out, and we made the decision. We thought we need something of difference. So we bought these plasmas, and at the time they were $3,500 each, and we went to buy 8 of them. And I remember that they were huge. Back then TVs were only 26 inch air. So, and they became so successful that we would have reps. People would ring up the motel and say, "Look, can we stay in the new rooms with the big TVs?" So it certainly paid off, and it was a gamble at the time because you could buy a TV for around $600-700 at the most.
Yes.
So it was quite an expensive capital outlay. Well worth it. Yeah. But you were always looking for that edge. Yeah. When the internet came out, we tried to have Wi-Fi in the rooms, and we hardwired it at the time, but we were probably ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
And so we spent reasonable capital, and then only to turn around in less than 18 months to throw all that out and get a better system that was more efficient and worked. So you didn't always get it right. You didn't always get it right. No, people think that you're super successful in every aspect, but it's not the case. No, not always.
Okay. Yeah. And like looking around here, this looks fantastic. Everything's like pristine. You've got this drive for perfection. Where does that come from?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you just realise the journey of life and what you do is when you do it well, Tim, you generally get success from it. Yeah. And you can't give away average or mediocre, but when you've got something that's done well, it just sells itself.
Yeah.
We came out here 2.5 years ago with Ange, and this has been her forte, and it's a lot slower pace than motel life. I must say. It's great. Still busy at times, but you get to enjoy life. Yeah, which is one good thing.
Yeah, excellent. Now, just mindful of time, what tips have you got for anyone either starting out thinking about going into hospitality or doing functions and things like that, or just into business in general? What other extra tips have you got for us?
Passion is number one. You've got to have passion. You've got to love what you do. Yeah. You don't want to, particularly hospitality, working with people is one of the hardest aspects.
Yeah.
And managing people, staff. It's just, most business owners you will talk to will tell you the same thing, that running a business is easy. It's managing the staff that gives you all the headaches. Managing people and their personalities. But passion is number one, Tim. You've got to have passion, and you've got to love. If you're going to be in hospitality, Tim, I think the single most important thing, you've got to love being around people.
Yeah.
The number one, yeah, absolutely. And then it follows from there. Provide great service and consistency, as I touched on before, and you would definitely be successful.
Consistency builds a brand builds familiarity,
Absolutely.
and people love that.
Yeah. And it takes time, Tim. Everything takes time, yeah. Good things take time. Yeah, people forget that. Nothing happens in 5 minutes.
That's that overnight success that takes 15 years.
Yeah, correct.
Mate, it's been a pleasure.
Yep.
Thank you for sharing the morning with me. It's been great to have a chat and get to know you a bit more.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. I hope everything goes well out here. The
Yep.
place looks well. We've got some painters out there doing some touches
Just
at the moment.
maintaining, yeah.
So if you do need a function, or if you've got a function, 21st, I think Cam said that he'll marry you, he buries you,
Yep, do it all,
21st, anniversaries, whatever it may be. You can accommodate, how many people can you have up to?
200 here, Tim.
To 200. Yep, so if you have got a function coming up, it's a great place, great setting. There's a lake out there, it looks fantastic. So give Cam a shout out. That's about it. Thanks for everybody for listening. We'll see you next week. See you later.